Hey guys, tonight we're going on a little detour, a gentle drift back in time to a place where comfort wasn't quite what it is today. Imagine, if you will, the gentle hum of your air conditioner, the soft give of your memory foam pillow, maybe even the faint scent of lavender from that sleep spray you splurged on. Now, picture yourself in ancient Egypt, the Nile River murmuring in the distance, the desert heat still clinging to the air even after sunset. You're ready for bed, exhausted after a long day of, well, whatever it was ancient Egyptians did, perhaps overseeing the construction of a new temple, or maybe just wrangling a particularly stubborn camel. You stumble towards your sleeping quarters, your eyes heavy, yearning for that blissful oblivion. And what do you find waiting for your weary head? A pillow. But not just any pillow, oh no. This one isn't soft, it's not fluffy, and it certainly doesn't conform to the shape of your head. It's made of stone. Yes, stone. A hard, unyielding, probably chilly piece of carved rock. Honestly, if you were transported back there, you probably wouldn't last one night. You'd be waking up with a crick in your neck that would make modern chiropractic adjustments look like a spa day. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Also, let me know in the comments where you're listening from and what time it is for you right now. It's always fascinating to see how far these whispers travel. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You might be wondering, why on earth would anyone willingly rest their head on a block of stone? It sounds less like a pillow and more like a punishment, doesn't it? But for the ancient Egyptians, this wasn't just a quirky design choice, it was a carefully considered piece of their daily lives, steeped in practicality, symbolism, and a surprisingly pragmatic approach to comfort, given the materials available. They weren't exactly heading down to the local department store for a sale on goose down. When you think about it, their world was a lot more tactile, a lot more connected to the earth. Everything from their tools to their homes was crafted from what nature provided, and stone was abundant, durable, and, in a hot climate, refreshingly cool. Imagine lying on a bed of palm fronds or a simple mat on the floor. In the stifling heat of an Egyptian night, a solid, cool surface under your neck would have been a welcome relief, a tiny oasis in a world without air conditioning. This wasn't about plushness, it was about temperature regulation. It was about staying cool enough to actually fall asleep, even if your neck might have felt a bit stiff in the morning. And let's be honest, they probably built up an incredible tolerance for discomfort, didn't they? We complain about a slightly lumpy mattress, while they were literally sleeping on rocks. It really puts things into perspective, doesn't it? It's almost admirable, in a very, very uncomfortable way. So, you're picturing this, right? You gently recline, your head hovering over a sturdy, carved piece of what looks suspiciously like granite. You might even feel a phantom chill radiating from it, a stark contrast to the warmth of your own bed. The very idea sends shivers down your spine, not of delight, but perhaps of mild apprehension. But for the ancient Egyptians, this wasn't a torture device masquerading as bedding. Instead, these headrests, as they were more accurately called, served a multitude of purposes, each more practical than you might initially assume. First and foremost, they were designed to elevate the head. This wasn't just about neck support, though that was certainly a factor. Think about the intricate hairstyles some Egyptians sported, particularly the wealthy. Elaborate braids, heavy wigs, and even simple but well-groomed locks would have been a nightmare to maintain if flattened against a flat surface all night. Imagine waking up with a hair disaster that would make even the most chaotic bedhead look like a salon masterpiece. The headrest kept the hair elevated, minimizing tangles and preserving those carefully constructed coiffures. It was like a very early form of hair protection, a precursor to silk bonnets and satin pillowcases, just, a lot harder. And then there's the issue of creepy crawlies. You're lying on a reed mat or a thin mattress, perhaps even directly on the packed earth floor. What sort of delightful nocturnal visitors might decide to share your sleeping space? Scorpions, snakes, various insects not exactly the cuddly kind. By elevating your head, even by a few inches, you were creating a small, albeit modest, barrier between your vulnerable face and whatever might be scuttling past in the dark. It was a subtle act of self-preservation, a silent plea to the nocturnal world to keep its distance. While modern entomologists might debate the true efficacy of a few inches of stone against a determined beetle, the intention was certainly there. It was a pragmatic approach to living in a world brimming with untamed nature, a quiet acknowledgement that some things were best kept at arm's length, or rather, at arm's elevation. The historians still debate just how prevalent these unwelcome nocturnal guests truly were in the average Egyptian home, but the fear, real or imagined, certainly played a role in the design of these unique sleeping aids. It reminds you of those old-fashioned beds with high legs, doesn't it? Different era, same underlying anxieties. As you continue to ponder the pragmatic ingenuity of these ancient headrests, you might start to feel a strange sort of respect for the Egyptians. They weren't just slapping a rock under their heads, they were thinking about airflow, hygiene, and even their hair care routines, all without the benefit of Pinterest or a quick Google search. Imagine the sheer ingenuity required to solve these everyday problems with such basic materials. The cool, smooth surface of the stone wasn't just a happy accident, it was a deliberate choice in a climate where staying cool was a constant battle. Picture yourself sweltering in a modern heatwave, desperate for anything to bring down your core temperature. Now imagine that feeling every single night, year-round. A stone headrest, even if it feels a bit like sleeping on a very polite brick, would have offered a palpable relief, drawing heat away from your head and neck. It was an ancient form of temperature regulation, a low-tech air conditioning unit for your noggin. This was crucial for comfortable sleep, especially when you consider that a good night's rest was as important to the Egyptians as it is to us, albeit for slightly different reasons. They weren't worried about hitting snooze on their alarm clock, but rather about preparing their minds and bodies for another day under the relentless desert sun. Beyond the practical, there was also a significant hygienic aspect to these hard headrests. Unlike modern pillows that absorb sweat, oils, and all sorts of delightful microscopic organisms, a stone headrest was incredibly easy to clean. A quick wipe down with a damp cloth, maybe a bit of sand for exfoliation, just kidding, mostly, and it was as good as new. No worrying about dust mites, no wrestling with pillowcases, no frantic attempts to fluff it back into shape. It was a remarkably low-maintenance piece of bedding, perfectly suited to a society that valued cleanliness, even if their methods sometimes seem a little unconventional to our modern sensibilities. You might recall their meticulous bathing rituals, or their penchant for linen clothing. Everything pointed towards a desire for purity and order. And their headrests were no exception. Some historians even suggest that the lack of absorbent materials reduced the spread of certain skin conditions or insect infestations, a subtle but significant benefit in a world without antibiotics or pest control. It's a fascinating thought, isn't it? The humble stone headrest, quietly contributing to public health long before germ theory was even a twinkle in anyone's eye. Truly a multitasker, even if it wasn't particularly cuddly. As your mind drifts further into the ancient Egyptian bedroom, you'll start to see that these headrests weren't just about utility, they were also quiet declarations of social standing. Imagine strolling through an ancient Egyptian marketplace, perhaps haggling over some papyrus scrolls or a particularly plump duck. You wouldn't necessarily know someone's wealth by their sandals, but if you could peek into their home, their headrest would tell you quite a lot. Just like today, where a luxury mattress or designer bedding can hint at your disposable income, so too did the materials and craftsmanship of an Egyptian headrest speak volumes. The average farmer, toiling in the fields, might have used a simple, unadorned block of wood or perhaps even a tightly rolled bundle of reeds. It would have served the same basic purpose of elevating the head, but without any of the embellishments or finer materials. Think of it as the no-frills, economy version of the headrest. Functional, but not exactly a showstopper. But then you have the wealthy elite, the pharaohs, the nobles, the high priests. Their headrests were often crafted from much more expensive and exotic materials. Imagine the gleaming polished alabaster, soft to the touch yet still undeniably solid, radiating a cool elegance. Or perhaps the rich, dark tones of ebony, intricately carved with hieroglyphs or depictions of protective deities. These weren't just headrests, they were works of art, miniature sculptures designed to be both functional and aesthetically pleasing. They might have been inlaid with precious metals, adorned with intricate patterns, or even feature small, delicate figurines. The artisans who crafted these pieces would have been highly skilled, their work commanding a high price. It was a subtle flex, a quiet way of saying, yes, even my pillow is better than yours. It's much like how we might display expensive artwork or unique furniture today, a blend of personal taste and a gentle nod to one's financial standing. The historians still debate the exact nuances of this class distinction, and whether a particularly humble-looking headrest could sometimes belong to a secretly wealthy individual. But generally, the more opulent the headrest, the higher up the social ladder its owner likely was. It makes you wonder, if you were an ancient Egyptian, what kind of headrest would you have chosen? Would you have gone for practicality, or would you have splurged on something truly magnificent? Let's turn our attention to the exquisite artistry that often adorned these seemingly simple pieces of bedtime furniture. You're already picturing the cool, hard surface, but imagine it transformed by the hands of a skilled artisan. These weren't just rough-hewn blocks, many were meticulously crafted, showcasing the incredible talent of ancient Egyptian sculptors and carvers. The design of these headrests could vary quite a bit, from elegantly simple curves to surprisingly intricate forms. Some might have resembled miniature stools, with a flat or gently curved top surface resting on a single, sturdy column. Others could feature more complex supports, perhaps 2 or 3 carved pillars, sometimes even designed to mimic bundled papyrus reeds, a subtle nod to the fertile lands of the Nile. But it was the artistic carvings that truly elevated these utilitarian objects into something special. These weren't just random decorations, they were imbued with deep meaning, designed to offer protection and ensure a peaceful, restorative sleep. Imagine waking up to the watchful eyes of a protective deity carved directly into your headrest. Common motifs included benevolent gods and goddesses, like Bes, the dwarf deity associated with childbirth, fertility, and the protection of homes and families, often depicted with a cheerful, slightly mischievous grin. Or perhaps Taurut, the hippopotamus goddess, protector of pregnant women and newborns, her formidable yet comforting presence offering reassurance against nightmares. You might also find hieroglyphic inscriptions, short prayers, or even the name of the owner, ensuring that their sleep was guarded and their journey through the night realms was safe. It was a blend of art and magic, a silent guardian watching over your slumber. It's almost like having a built-in security system for your dreams, isn't it? Far more elegant than a noisy alarm system or a dog that barks at shadows. The more elaborate the carvings, the more powerful the protection was believed to be. This belief in the power of symbols and divine intervention permeated every aspect of Egyptian life, and sleep was no exception. The historians still debate the precise rituals or incantations that might have accompanied the placement of these headrests, or whether certain carvings were reserved for specific social classes or types of sleepers. But what's clear is that these objects were seen as far more than just a place to rest your head. They were conduits to the divine, silent guardians in the vulnerable hours of sleep. It makes you wonder, if you could design your own ancient Egyptian headrest, what protective symbols or deities would you choose to watch over your slumber? A little guardian angel in granite, perhaps. As you settle deeper into the quiet hum of the night, your mind still lingering on those carved stone guardians, it's important to remember that for the ancient Egyptians, sleep wasn't just a physical necessity, it was a deeply spiritual journey, a temporary departure from the waking world into realms unknown. And these headrests played a crucial role in facilitating that journey, acting as silent anchors in the fleeting passage between consciousness and the mysterious world of dreams. Their beliefs about the afterlife were incredibly complex and permeated every aspect of their existence, and sleep was seen as a microversion of that grander journey. It was believed that during sleep, the Ba, or soul, could leave the body and wander freely, encountering both benevolent and malevolent forces. Imagine your soul just casually strolling out of your body for a midnight wander. Sounds a bit adventurous, doesn't it? The headrest, with its protective carvings and elevating design, was therefore not just supporting your physical head, but symbolically safeguarding your soul's journey. It was believed to help keep your Ba safe from harm as it ventured into the dream world, ensuring its safe return to your body before you awoke. Think of it as a metaphysical safety net, a spiritual GPS tracker for your wandering essence. This profound connection between sleep and the spiritual realm meant that a good night's rest wasn't just about feeling refreshed, it was about ensuring the continued well-being of your spiritual self. A disturbed sleep could mean a troubled journey for the Ba, potentially leading to illness or misfortune upon waking. So, the stakes were surprisingly high for a good night's sleep in ancient Egypt. It wasn't just about getting enough Zs, it was about protecting your very essence. This belief system is a fascinating example of how deeply interwoven their spiritual and practical lives were. Even something as seemingly mundane as a pillow had profound religious significance. The historians still debate the exact theological nuances of the Ba's nightly excursions, and whether certain types of dreams were actively sought or avoided through specific rituals involving the headrest. But the general consensus is that these headrests were more than just furniture, they were integral to the Egyptian understanding of life, death, and the ethereal journey of the soul. It makes you wonder, do our modern sleep aids have any hidden spiritual significance we're unaware of? Perhaps that fluffy memory foam is secretly warding off mischievous spirits. Probably not, but it's a fun thought, isn't it? While the image of a stone headrest might dominate our perception of ancient Egyptian slumber, it's important to remember that not everyone had access to these elegant, or even basic, carved pieces. Just as with any society, there were varying levels of comfort and luxury, and the humble headrest was no exception. So, while the wealthy might have been resting their heads on polished alabaster or intricately carved ebony, what about the vast majority of the population, the farmers, the laborers, the common folk? You wouldn't find them commissioning bespoke stone headrests, that's for sure. Their sleeping arrangements, and consequently their pillows, were likely far more rudimentary. Imagine a simple, sun-baked mud brick dwelling, perhaps with a straw mat spread on the floor. For a pillow, they might have used something far more readily available and less costly. Bundles of reeds or papyrus, tightly bound together, would have offered a slightly softer, yet still firm, elevation for the head. It wouldn't have had the cool properties of stone, but it would have kept their heads off the dusty, potentially bug-infested ground. Think of it as the original rolled-up towel, but made from natural fibers. Or perhaps they used folded pieces of coarse linen, if they were fortunate enough to possess extra fabric. It wouldn't have been plush, but it would have provided a thin layer of padding, a minimal comfort in a life that was often very hard. The historians still debate the exact materials used by the common people, as these organic substances rarely survive the ravages of time. But based on evidence from other cultures and logical inference, we can paint a picture of much simpler, less elaborate sleeping solutions. Even simple wooden blocks were likely used, offering a step up from bundled reeds in terms of stability, but still lacking in the squishy comfort we crave. These would have been unadorned, purely functional pieces, perhaps salvaged from other uses or quickly carved. The key was elevation and a barrier from the ground. While we might shudder at the thought of sleeping on such unforgiving surfaces, remember their bodies were likely far more accustomed to physical hardship. They weren't spending their days hunched over computers, their muscles were developed from manual labor, and their expectations of comfort were, understandably, quite different from our own. It reminds you that necessity truly is the mother of invention, and sometimes, the simplest solutions are the most effective, even if they don't exactly scream luxury. While the image of a stone headrest might dominate our perception of ancient Egyptian slumber, it's important to remember that not everyone had access to these elegant, or even basic, carved pieces. Just as with any society, there were varying levels of comfort and luxury, and the humble headrest was no exception. So, while the wealthy might have been resting their heads on polished alabaster or intricately carved ebony, what about the vast majority of the population, the farmers, the laborers, the common folk? You wouldn't find them commissioning bespoke stone headrests, that's for sure. Their sleeping arrangements, and consequently their pillows, were likely far more rudimentary. Imagine a simple, sun-baked mud brick dwelling, perhaps with a straw mat spread on the floor. For a pillow, they might have used something far more readily available and less costly. Bundles of reeds or papyrus, tightly bound together, would have offered a slightly softer, yet still firm, elevation for the head. It wouldn't have had the cool properties of stone, but it would have kept their heads off the dusty, potentially bug-infested ground. Think of it as the original rolled-up towel, but made from natural fibers. Or perhaps they used folded pieces of coarse linen, if they were fortunate enough to possess extra fabric. It wouldn't have been plush, but it would have provided a thin layer of padding, a minimal comfort in a life that was often very hard. The historians still debate the exact materials used by the common people, as these organic substances rarely survive the ravages of time. But based on evidence from other cultures and logical inference, we can paint a picture of much simpler, less elaborate sleeping solutions. Even simple wooden blocks were likely used, offering a step up from bundled reeds in terms of stability, but still lacking in the squishy comfort we crave. These would have been unadorned, purely functional pieces, perhaps salvaged from other uses or quickly carved. The key was elevation and a barrier from the ground. While we might shudder at the thought of sleeping on such unforgiving surfaces, remember their bodies were likely far more accustomed to physical hardship. They weren't spending their days hunched over computers, their muscles were developed from manual labor, and their expectations of comfort were, understandably, quite different from our own. It reminds you that necessity truly is the mother of invention, and sometimes, the simplest solutions are the most effective, even if they don't exactly scream luxury. As your mind floats gently through the sands of time, you might start to wonder about the broader context of sleep in ancient Egypt. What did a typical night look like for them, beyond the intriguing headrests? We, in our modern world, are often driven by strict schedules, alarm clocks, and the relentless pursuit of 8 uninterrupted hours. But the ancient Egyptians, living in a world without electric lights or constant digital stimulation, had a rhythm of life that was deeply intertwined with the natural cycles of day and night. Their relationship with sleep was likely far more fluid and perhaps even more intuitive than ours. It's generally believed that Egyptians practiced a biphasic sleep pattern. This means they would typically sleep in 2 distinct phases, rather than one long stretch. Imagine retiring shortly after sunset, perhaps catching a few hours of initial sleep, what we might call first sleep. Then, they would wake up for a period in the middle of the night. This wasn't a restless awakening, it was a time for quiet activity. Perhaps they would tend to a fire, engage in quiet conversation with family members, meditate, reflect on their dreams, which we'll get to soon, or even perform small household tasks. There was no pressure to stay completely still or silent, the night was simply another phase of activity, albeit a calmer, more introspective one. After this middle-of-the-night interlude, they would then drift back to sleep for a second sleep until dawn. It sounds rather civilized, doesn't it? A built-in quiet time in the middle of the night, free from the incessant demands of modern life. This biphasic sleep pattern wasn't unique to ancient Egypt, it was common in many pre-industrial societies across the globe. Artificial light has, in many ways, fundamentally altered our natural sleep cycles, pushing us towards the consolidated 8-hour block. The historians still debate the precise reasons why biphasic sleep fell out of favor in Western societies, but the advent of widespread artificial lighting and the Industrial Revolution certainly played a significant role, allowing work and social activities to extend far beyond sunset. So, while you might be lying in bed right now, fretting about getting your full quota of unbroken slumber, the ancient Egyptians might have found your relentless pursuit of continuous sleep rather odd. They embraced the natural rhythm of the night, dividing their rest into productive segments, perhaps finding a different kind of peace in that fragmented slumber. It makes you wonder, if we turned off all our lights, would our bodies naturally gravitate back to that ancient rhythm? Perhaps a little midnight reflection isn't so bad after all. Now, let's explore another fascinating aspect of sleep in ancient Egypt, one that directly links to their unique headrests, the profound connection they made between rest and overall well-being. For the Egyptians, good health wasn't just about diet or exercise, it was deeply intertwined with the quality of your sleep, and by extension, the state of your spirit. You might recall their elaborate medical texts, detailing everything from dental procedures to complex surgeries. They were keen observers of the human body, and they understood that a lack of proper rest could lead to various ailments. But beyond the purely physiological, they believed that a harmonious sleep allowed the body to return refreshed, bringing vitality back to the body. Imagine consulting an ancient Egyptian physician for a persistent headache or a general feeling of malaise. They might not immediately prescribe a headache tablet, but they would certainly inquire about your sleep patterns, perhaps even suggesting adjustments to your sleeping environment or rituals. While we don't have definitive medical texts specifically detailing the prescription of stone headrests for sleep disorders, the presence of various magical texts and amulets related to dreams and peaceful rest suggests a holistic approach to sleep health. It was believed that a troubled sleep could indicate spiritual imbalance, and that restorative sleep was key to maintaining both physical and spiritual equilibrium. Think of it as ancient holistic medicine, where the mind, body, and spirit were inextricably linked. There are also theories, though still debated among historians, that the very design of the headrest might have offered certain physiological benefits. For instance, the elevation of the head could have potentially helped with breathing for some individuals, perhaps reducing snoring or improving airflow. In a world without readily available antihistamines or decongestants, simple elevation could have made a significant difference. Some researchers even propose that the firm, unyielding surface might have subtly supported neck alignment, though this is a more speculative area, given the lack of detailed anatomical understanding at the time. However, the Egyptians were incredibly adept at observation, and it's plausible they noticed a correlation between certain sleeping positions and a sense of well-being. The historians still debate the extent to which these headrests were consciously designed with specific therapeutic intentions, beyond their obvious practical and spiritual functions. But what's clear is that for the ancient Egyptians, sleep was far more than just shutting down for the night, it was an active process of rejuvenation and a critical component of a healthy, balanced life. It really makes you appreciate your chiropractor, doesn't it? So, we've journeyed from ancient Egyptian bedrooms to their elaborate tombs, pondering the stony comfort and spiritual significance of their headrests. But how, you might wonder, did this very firm concept of head elevation eventually evolve into the soft, fluffy pillows we sink into today? It's a slow, meandering journey through history, a gradual softening of humanity's slumber, if you will. The transition wasn't a sudden leap from stone to down feathers, it was a series of incremental changes, driven by technological advancements, shifts in cultural values, and a growing appreciation for what we now consider comfort. After the decline of the Egyptian civilization, the headrest concept continued to evolve in various forms across different cultures. In other parts of the world, particularly in Asia, rigid headrests made of wood, porcelain, or bamboo remained popular for centuries. Think of the elaborate porcelain pillows from ancient China or the simple wooden blocks used in Japan. These still served similar purposes, preserving elaborate hairstyles, maintaining coolness, and offering a degree of elevation. But as societies developed and new materials became available, the idea of a softer, more yielding surface began to take hold, albeit slowly. The Greeks and Romans, for instance, started experimenting with more malleable forms of pillows. They used stuffed bags of cloth filled with materials like reeds, straw, or even cotton. This was a significant departure from the solid, unyielding nature of stone. It was the first tentative step towards what we now recognize as a true pillow. However, these early soft pillows were still a far cry from modern plushness. Imagine sleeping on a sack of hay. It might offer a little more give than stone, but it wouldn't exactly be cloud-like. It was progress, nonetheless, a slow realization that perhaps a little cushioning could be a good thing. The historians still debate the precise turning points in this evolution, and whether certain cultural shifts or technological innovations truly accelerated the move towards softer bedding. But what's clear is that the relentless pursuit of comfort, or at least a less rigid form of sleep, was a gradual, almost imperceptible force driving this change. It's like watching a very slow-motion comfort revolution unfold over millennia. And in many ways, the spirit of that ancient Egyptian elevation, that desire for a clean and supported head, still lingers in the ergonomic designs of our modern pillows, albeit now encased in layers of much, much softer material. Thank goodness for that, right? Your neck is probably thanking its lucky stars. Now, as the evening deepens and your eyelids feel a little heavier, let's imagine a short, gentle tale, a quiet glimpse into the life of someone who might have actually used one of these ancient headrests. Picture Nefer, a young Egyptian scribe living during the reign of Hatshepsut. Nefer spent his days meticulously copying hieroglyphs onto papyrus, his fingers stained with ink, his eyes tired from the intricate work. He wasn't rich enough for alabaster, but his family was respected, and he possessed a carefully crafted headrest made of smooth, dark sycamore wood. It was simple, elegant in its own way, and carried the faint, sweet scent of the wood itself. As the sun dipped below the horizon, painting the sky in fiery hues of orange and purple, Nefer would return to his modest home, the sounds of the bustling marketplace fading into the quiet of the evening. He'd share a simple meal of bread, fish, and perhaps some dates with his family. Then, as the stars began to pepper the inky blackness of the desert sky, he'd prepare for sleep. He wouldn't flop onto a soft mattress like you might. Instead, he'd unroll his reed mat on the cool, packed earth floor, perhaps near an open window to catch any whisper of a breeze. He'd carefully place his wooden headrest at the top, its smooth surface catching the faint moonlight. As he lay down, the firm curve of the wood would meet the back of his neck. There was no sinking in, no luxurious softness. Instead, it was a solid, unwavering support, keeping his neatly braided hair off the ground and away from any stray sand or scurrying insects. He might close his eyes and listen to the distant sounds of the Nile, or the quiet chirping of crickets. Perhaps he'd think about the next day's work, or a dream he had the night before. This wasn't a restless sleep for Nefer. It was a familiar ritual, a comfort derived from routine and the knowledge that his headrest, simple as it was doing its job. It was protecting him, physically and perhaps spiritually, as he drifted into the realm where his BA might wander. He'd wake refreshed, albeit with a faint impression of the wood on his cheek, ready to face another day under the Egyptian sun. It's a quiet, humble scene, isn't it? A testament to the timeless human need for rest, even when comfort came in a much firmer package. Now, let's delve a little deeper into that mysterious realm of dreams, a territory the ancient Egyptians considered immensely significant. You heard Nefer might reflect on his dreams. For them, dreams weren't just random neurological firings or the product of a late-night snack. Oh no. Dreams were seen as messages from the gods, prophecies of the future, or insights into the hidden workings of the universe. Imagine waking up and immediately wondering what divine message your slumbering mind had just received. It adds a whole new layer of importance to bedtime, doesn't it? No more hitting snooze and groggily forgetting what you dreamt. They even had dedicated dream interpretation manuals and professional dream interpreters, much like modern therapists, but with a much more mystical bent. If you had a particularly vivid or disturbing dream, you might seek out one of these specialists, eager to unravel its hidden meaning. A dream of a flourishing garden might signify prosperity, while a dream of falling teeth could be a warning of impending misfortune. It was all taken very seriously. And where did these divine messages often arrive? During sleep, while your BA was out exploring, guided, perhaps, by the very headrest beneath your waking head. It was as if the headrest was a kind of spiritual antenna, helping to receive those ethereal transmissions. Some rituals even involved sleeping in specific locations, like temples dedicated to certain deities, in the hope of receiving prophetic dreams. People would undergo a process of incubation, essentially sleeping in a sacred space, hoping to be blessed with a revelatory dream that could provide answers to their problems or guidance for their future. This wasn't just about getting some rest, it was a deliberate act of seeking divine intervention through the portal of sleep. The historians still debate the psychological aspects of these dream interpretations, and whether the rituals themselves induced certain types of dreams through suggestion and expectation. But what's undeniable is the profound role dreams played in ancient Egyptian daily life and religious practice. It makes you wonder, if your headrest was designed to help you receive divine messages, would you start paying more attention to your dreams? Perhaps that weird dream about flying purple hippos actually has a deeper meaning after all. As our journey through the quiet history of Egyptian slumber draws to a close, let's take a moment to appreciate the enduring legacy of these unique headrests. You might not see them in your local bedding store, but their presence in archaeological finds around the world speaks volumes about their importance and the profound insights they offer into ancient civilizations. When archaeologists meticulously unearth an ancient Egyptian tomb, among the glittering gold masks, the intricate sarcophagi, and the preserved papyrus scrolls, you will often find a headrest. Sometimes it's a simple, unassuming piece of wood, sometimes a magnificent alabaster carving. Each one, regardless of its material, is a tangible link to the intimate, personal lives of people who lived thousands of years ago. These artifacts aren't just curiosities, they are invaluable sources of information for historians and archaeologists. They help us understand the daily routines, the social structures, the artistic capabilities, and, most importantly, the deeply held beliefs of the ancient Egyptians. By studying the materials, the craftsmanship, and the placement of these headrests, researchers can piece together fragments of a forgotten world. They can learn about trade routes that brought exotic woods, about the specialized skills of artisans, and about the nuanced complexities of Egyptian religious practices surrounding sleep and death. It's like finding a small, oddly shaped key that unlocks a whole new room in the vast museum of history. Think of the famous Tutankhamun's headrest, a stunning example of royal opulence, crafted from blue faience and featuring intricate gold decorations. It's not just a beautiful object, it's a direct connection to a young pharaoh who lived and slept, perhaps not always comfortably, over 3 millennia ago. These preserved headrests are often displayed in museums worldwide, silent witnesses to ancient lives, inviting us to pause and reflect on the universal human need for rest, even when the means of achieving it were so dramatically different. The historians still debate the precise meaning of every single decorative element on these headrests, and whether some were purely aesthetic versus having a deeper magical purpose. But what's clear is that these simple objects hold a surprising amount of historical weight, continuing to whisper their ancient stories to anyone willing to listen. They remind us that even the most mundane objects can carry profound significance, connecting us across vast stretches of time to the lives and beliefs of those who came before us. So, as we gently pull back from the dusty plains of ancient Egypt and drift back to the soft comfort of your own bed, take a moment to truly appreciate the luxury that surrounds you. That incredibly soft, perfectly plump pillow beneath your head? It's not just a cushion, it's the culmination of millennia of human ingenuity, a testament to our ongoing quest for deeper, more restorative sleep. From the cool, unyielding stone of the pharaohs to the soft, yielding foam of your own sanctuary, the journey of the pillow has been a long and fascinating one. Imagine, if you will, the tiny, almost imperceptible shift in human comfort, from a society that found repose on carved rock to one that meticulously engineers the perfect level of plushness. We've come a long way from fearing scorpions on the floor and relying on stone to keep our elaborate wigs intact. Now, our biggest sleep worries might be blue light from our phones or the gentle hum of traffic outside our window. It's a remarkable transformation, isn't it? And perhaps, in a strange, roundabout way, those ancient Egyptians, with their sensible stone headrests, laid the very first, firm foundations for our modern-day comfort. They understood the importance of elevation, of keeping the head clear, and of protecting oneself in the vulnerable hours of slumber. As your own eyelids grow heavy, and the gentle rhythm of your breathing slows, allow yourself to sink into the familiar embrace of your own bedding. Feel the softness, the subtle give, the way it cradles your head just so. There's no need to worry about wandering BA spirits or interpreting divine messages from the cosmos. Just the quiet promise of undisturbed rest. Let the ancient whispers fade into the background, replaced by the gentle lull of your own peaceful thoughts. The world outside can wait. For now, it's just you and the sweet embrace of sleep. Close your eyes, let go of any lingering thoughts, and allow yourself to drift. Rest well, knowing that your comfortable slumber is a small, luxurious miracle, built on the foundations of some very, very hard lessons from the past. You are safe. You are warm. You are ready to rest. End of script. Sweet dreams.